Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Golden Gopher Hour podcast. My name is Callaghan-Croley, publisher at Gophers Nation of the On3 Network, covering everything in Minnesota Golden Gophers athletics. I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Tony Liebert of Bring Me the News. Tony, I may need you to do most of the talking today as I battle some sort of cold, but how are you doing on this fine day?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Halloween right around the corner. This is kind of the best time of the year. Sports equinox, everything going on, and it should be an interesting Gophers game this weekend against struggling Michigan State team to say the least.
Absolutely, and we'll set the table right there. Michigan State 3-5, 0-5 in Big Ten play coming into this weekend after picking up wins over Western Michigan, Boston College, and Youngstown State to open the year. They've lost all five Big Ten games by 11 points or more. Their defense is among the worst in the country. Their offense is good, but is not good enough to make up for the defensive struggles this season under defensive coordinator Joe Rossi. They did have one of their better performances of the season last week against Michigan, albeit still allowing 31 points in that game. But yeah, this is just like you said, a struggling Michigan State team, and one that I talked to a couple people familiar with what's going on in East Lansing, and if the Gophers win on Saturday, Jonathan Smith's job could be in jeopardy. And obviously, I think most people right now are picking the Gophers to win. So I mean, that adds a whole different wrinkle to this game this weekend of perhaps the Jonathan Smith era coming to a very quick conclusion here in year two.
Yeah, this I guess was a really interesting game and interesting Michigan State team preseason. I was looking back on my record predictions I did in the summer for the Gophers, and I predicted they'd lose this game because it's kind of in an interesting spot after two really tough opponents with Nebraska and Iowa back to back in fourth game in 4 weeks if you include the Purdue game, or fifth game in or sixth game in 6 weeks to open Big Ten play now after that bye between the Cal and Rutgers game. And it's a interesting spot with the bye next week before the Oregon game. But I mean, as for Michigan State, on paper they have talented players, and I think their biggest issue is Aiden Childs just really hasn't been the player that Jonathan Smith thought he was going to be and Michigan State thought he was going to be. They kind of hitched their wagon to him, and it really hasn't worked out. And yeah,
No, I was just gonna add he's had poor performances. There's no doubt this season he's been benched two or three times. He's had some really good performances too, but the overall stats are not terrible for him. At let's see here, 63% completion percentage, 1,300 yards, almost 14, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But and while he has cut down the interceptions, he had 11 last year in 12 games, down to 3 so far. He hasn't taken that next step, and I think that's the big thing for the Spartans is while he has cut down on the interceptions, like you said, he hasn't had that season they expected him to have, and I think a lot of us around the Big Ten believed if he took that next step into being one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, this Spartans team could have been a not dark horse in the Big Ten, but they could have been a team that definitely won 7 or 8 games and played spoiler and was perhaps capable of knocking off a top-ranked opponent.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I saw them preseason, and the fact that they are 0-5 in Big Ten play is quite alarming. And obviously, it's a game by game thing, and you look more deeply, and they might not be the worst team in the Big Ten, but I think they're in the argument to be,
Yeah.
which is certainly a disappointment in year two at a program like Michigan State, where not that long ago they were playing in conference title games. And I mean, they have a talented roster. Nick Marsh, I think, is one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten, outside of maybe Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Makai Lemon. I think he's kind of in that second tier after those guys, and they have a solid roster. They invested in the coaching with bringing Joe Rossi from Minnesota, and it just really hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
And this is the point of the season where I guess I question from an outsider's perspective, as someone who doesn't cover Michigan State, but obviously analyzes the Big Ten closely. Is the team checked out at this point of the year? I mean,
Yeah.
that rivalry game seemed like a big moment for them. That if they pulled off the upset, maybe they could end the year strong. But after a game like that, kind of the Gophers' perspective, when you get beat up by your rival, it's hard to bounce back because
Yeah.
we talked about it on Sunday. It's just those games count twice as much in college football, and
Yeah.
the fact that this game is at home, I think, will help the Gophers. But that doesn't. Everything that I've said about Michigan State, they're still a talented team and they're still dangerous. So
Yeah.
that's what I think makes this game interesting.
Yeah, and I think beyond that quickly, you talk about if Michigan State's checked out. It's very easy once you lose 5 straight games, double digits in all 5 games, to stop listening to the powers that may be in that locker room, such as head coach Jonathan Smith. I mean, just beyond that, Jonathan Smith always seemed to be a weird fit for me with Michigan State, and I'm not surprised it hasn't gone to plan for the Spartans. But I think you bring up that checked out factor is very much a possibility. Despite what we've said about this Michigan State team, being 0-5, having their struggles, when you look at this game, if they're going to win this game, which depending on how the Gophers come out, there's definitely an avenue for Minnesota to lose this game. But the one spot I look is you look at the health of the secondary of the Gophers here, and you look at this Michigan State pass attack led by Aiden Childs. But they also have a couple really quality wide receivers there in Nick Marsh and Amari Kelly. Nick Marsh this season, 42 receptions for 479 yards and 5 touchdowns. Amari Kelly, his number 2 option, 30 receptions, 435 and a score. The Gophers cornerbacks are going to have a good game, and the safeties are going to have a good game to keep those two quiet on Saturday. Marsh has the capabilities of taking over any single game. We haven't really seen that out of him this year. He was better last year. But, you look at the health of the Gophers secondary coming into this game, and that's a matchup that I think very well could decide this game is if a banged-up Gophers secondary can keep this Michigan State passing attack quiet for the most part.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and especially after we saw how John Nestor left that game last week against Iowa. We know he missed the Nebraska game.
Yeah.
PJ Fleck and the Gopher staff are always close to the vest, so we're not going to know for sure if he's going to play until 2 hours before kickoff.
But it did not look good on Saturday against Iowa.
Yeah, it certainly would. I would lean towards him not playing this week.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if he gave it a go. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big factor in this game because you mentioned Michigan State has pretty talented wide receivers, and is, I guess, up and down as Aiden Childs has been. When he's on, he's still a very talented quarterback, and they're a pass attack that can move the football. And we've seen the Gophers struggle against Cal, Rutgers, Ohio State, and even Purdue a little bit in those moments. And it looked like they found something against Nebraska. Jayonte McMillan played really well in place of John Nestor. So they have the guys to perform there, but there doesn't mean there's still not questions. So I think that's kind of where this game comes down to, because on paper Michigan State doesn't really do anything outstanding, and they really haven't over the last 2 years under Jonathan Smith. Mm-hmm. But I think if the Gophers struggle in this game, it's because of Michigan State's pass attack, because they have talent there, and the Gophers have shown vulnerability in terms of their cornerbacks in tackling at the safety position. So it's just, I think that's the most important matchup in this game, and I think it's going to determine pretty quickly. We'll see how the Gophers come out on Saturday.
Last week, Mike Gerald also missed the game, as well as Garrison Monroe. So Gerald's been in and out of the lineup, mostly out of the lineup this year. Monroe has barely played over the last month, I think, now. I think he appeared in one game, but has been out of the lineup otherwise. So, I mean, you had those two. You look at those two, you think about John Nestor. I mean, he was barely putting any pressure on that ankle last week after injuring it against Iowa. So we'll see if he's able to go on Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if he gives it a go. He is, he hasn't been around the program a ton, but he seems like a tough kid who's hard to keep off the field. So as long as the medical staff gives him the all clear to try it, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him. So that'll be something to watch with those three injuries. The one place where I think the Gophers can take advantage defensively in this game, though, is in the trenches. Gophers this year, very quietly, by the way, ninth in the country in sacks with 25, according to CFB stats. And that's going up against a Michigan State offensive line that has allowed 23 sacks this year, which ranks 119th in the country. If there's a place to be, the Gophers can exploit this Michigan State offense, it's going to be in the trenches. It's going to be in the pass rush. Could be a big day for Anthony Smith or one of the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. There are just a lot of stats that I think support the Gophers having a strong chance for a bounce-back game in this scenario. I mean, since P.J. Fleck's been at Minnesota, they've responded well after games like this. Overall, there's obviously been circumstances where it hasn't happened, but when you've been at a place for 9 years, you can follow some trends, and
absolutely,
the Gophers have routinely responded in this spot, and they're going to have to, because a loss in this game, I think, against a Michigan State team that is ailing like it is, has questions as a program like it does, at this point of the Fleck tenure after the Iowa game, would just be a brutal, brutal result. I think they have enough to take care of business, but like you mentioned, it's just that Michigan State just has so many holes across their roster, I think, that Minnesota should be able to take advantage of. And if they don't, it's just really, I guess, conducive, and it's alarming for this coaching staff that they weren't able to take advantage of those spots, because Minnesota has a lot of advantages all over the field in this matchup.
I would say, despite the secondary injuries, I do like the Minnesota defense's matchup against the Michigan State offense in this game overall. And this is a game where I would expect the defense to have a pretty strong day. I mean, you look at what this Michigan State offense ranks across college football: scoring offense 78th, rushing offense 106, passing offense 89th, total offense 110. They struggle on third and fourth down. I mean, the Gophers have their faults on defense, but as long as the corners and safeties can hold up against the Michigan State passing attack, which I think they should be able to do a decent job of, this should be a good day for the Minnesota defense. And like you said, if it's not, that's where you start entering some concerns about where this defense and team is heading into the last 3 games of the season after that.
Yeah, and then even if you look on the other side of the ball, I mean, it hasn't been great for Joe Rossi at Michigan State since he left Minnesota after the 2023 season. I mean, his defense took a huge step back that year. It was back-to-back top 10 units in 21 and 22. And then that, I guess, 5 and 7 regular season that year. The defense was not great. And then Michigan State, I guess, poaches him to be on Jonathan Smith's first staff.
Yep.
And it hasn't been great in East Lansing for their defense either. And that's another reason why I like the Gophers' chances in this game. Michigan State's allowed at least 30 points in every Big Ten game, and the Gophers have only had 30 points in one Big Ten game. So there have been moments where this offense looks like they have the guys to be a productive unit, specifically the Rutgers game and a drive against Purdue and that super long drive against Nebraska. Yeah. But there's just such a big opportunity for them right here to regain their confidence going into the bye week. And it starts with Michigan State's defense just doesn't really look like they have an identity,
Yeah.
which is surprising to I think a lot of Gophers fans because
And that's something I've heard from Michigan State people over the course of the season as well.
yeah, because Joe Rossi for those 2 seasons looked like a defensive mastermind, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. Like the Gophers had top 10 defenses in college football, which is not easy to do at a Big Ten
Right.
program. And it hasn't clicked for them at Michigan State, and the Gophers I think need to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I understand. I do wonder though because and now obviously the Minnesota offensive stats have been uh, deflated quite a bit by the two performances against Ohio State and Iowa. But you look across the board at the Minnesota offense, and the numbers when you look at the rank nationally are not pretty by any means. 97th best scoring offense this year at 23.9 points per game, 109th rushing attack, 96th passing offense, 123rd total offense, 85th on third down percentage, 120th on fourth down percentage, 64th in red zone percentage. I do wonder though if for I like to say obviously that stats don't lie, and stats are a pretty good indication of who you are. Sometimes they don't tell the full picture, but I do wonder with this Minnesota offense that is it now if they struggle, does it almost negate the struggles of the Michigan State defense, if that makes sense? Like, is this Minnesota offense what it's been this year good enough to beat a bad Michigan State defense routinely throughout this game? Is a better way to put it, and that's something coming into Saturday that I'm not sure I can sit here and tell you that I'm confident that Minnesota is going to continue that trend of opponents scoring 30 plus points on Michigan State, which I think is another conversation to have down the road. But even last year, at times when the offense was better than it was this year, it still wasn't an elite offense by any means. Now, part of this is because the rushing attack has been really poor over the last 2.5 seasons. But the offense, I think there's just a little bit of a bigger picture thing to look there is that this Minnesota offense, while it has its moments, it has mostly not been good this season, and I'm not confident they can necessarily move the ball consistently on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of unnecessary to have this conversation before the game, but if they're not able to move the ball, I think you seriously have to consider making changes on that staff, honestly,
Right.
in terms of, I guess, how they operate. Again,
Yeah.
I'm never going to call for anyone's job,
Right,
but it just,
right.
if it doesn't click this week, I don't know if it's ever going to click because it's now week 10 of the season. You're playing the worst defense in the Big Ten. It's at home. Like, any Gophers fan saw the Rutgers game and how Drake Lindsey looked in that game and realized that this guy has the tools, the intangibles to be an above-average Big Ten quarterback this year, as soon as this year, even as a redshirt freshman. And if that does, even if we haven't even mentioned Darius Taylor's health, which is another big story. I think he only played one snap against Iowa.
I doubt we see him this weekend.
And I agree with that. And that's even a bigger story, I think, because it's in the modern college football world, the Gophers invested a lot in retaining Darius Taylor, and PJ Flex referred to him multiple times as the best player on the team. Yeah. And if you don't have him in half your games, that obviously hurts your chances. So I think if he's playing or not, I would lean also towards not. That I still don't think that's really a good excuse for a poor Gophers offensive performance in this game.
Right.
I mean, yeah, Fame Esheboy has shown
Fame has been, when Fame is given the opportunity this season to be the guy, he's been fantastic.
Yeah, and it's just like, there's no excuse, I think, for this game. And I
Yeah.
think we're going to learn a lot about this team, how they come out. If they come out with a dominant performance, which I think is totally in the cards, like, I'm not shocked that they're only 3.5, 4.5 point favorites, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they won this game by 25 points. For the factor that the quit factor for Michigan State, and the
Yeah.
factor that PJ Fleck has shown that he can get his team to respond in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think there's a lot of different scenarios that we could see in this game. And I think it's going to tell us a lot about where this program is, where Drake Lindsay is, where this team is, and where the rest of the season is.
Yeah, and you look across the board, the Michigan State defense, going back to just the idea of not being able to move the ball, there's not one area of this defense that is good for Michigan State. If the Gophers can move the ball on the ground against the 77th best run defense in the country that's allowing almost 150 yards per game, I mean, who are they going to be able to run the ball at all the rest of the season? Drake Lindsay and the passing attack has had its moments, but it's been rather inconsistent. The wide receiver play has been inconsistent. I mean, you want to talk about return on investment. The Gophers have invested a lot of resources into that wide receiver room the last few years, and the return on investment hasn't been there, in my opinion. There's been, again, moments, but it's. I think you said it well. There's this weekend. This game has a chance to either be a step in the right direction for this program going the rest of the way through the season, or if they lose and or struggle in a win, struggle offensively in a win, it's just going to create more question marks about what this team is and this offense is. And so, because I think the only way to describe the offense so far is mediocre at best, and that's been more or less what it's been the last few seasons outside of a few games. What's intriguing to me is that they'll find success in games, especially sometimes when they go like up tempo. They'll seem to be able to move the ball successfully, and then Greg Harbaugh Jr. just decides. I know you can't go up tempo the entire game, but he tends to go away from things that have been working, and then there's been the trick play issues for him. But yeah, I think if, like you said, if they struggle this weekend offensively, I don't know if anything happens in season, but it's a side of the ball that everything has to be looked at very closely in the offseason if the offense continues to struggle. And, I think if they don't have success this weekend, I'm not sure if they're going to have success the remainder of the season offensively, because Oregon is very tough. Northwestern, in whatever weather in November at Wrigley, could be really tough. And Wisconsin, quit factor, be damned in that game. That's still a rivalry game. Wisconsin's still going to want to win that game, and I think they'll probably show up in that game. And that was a Wisconsin defense that did contain Oregon decently this past week as well. So it's not a certainty that this offense is going to find it if it doesn't find it this week. And at the same time, we're 8 games into the season and we're having this conversation. It's probably not a great sign anyways.
Yeah, I agree with that. And with that all being said, I think in this game I just have more trust in Minnesota than I do Michigan State, because
give your final thoughts on a prediction.
Yeah, I think it's Minnesota has proof of concept this year. We saw it in the Nebraska game, and that's against a good Nebraska team. Probably not great, but a good Nebraska team that's going to go to a bowl game.
Yeah,
and Michigan State doesn't have proof of concept. Boston College is horrible, and they barely beat them. And Youngstown State and Western Michigan are arguably better than Boston College.
Yeah.
And they just haven't shown it against a Big Ten team this year. I think they can, but at this point of the season, I'm just going to trust the team that has shown it at least once. And even though that Rutgers game wasn't pretty, that was probably the Gophers' best offensive performance against a power conference team this year. And then that Nebraska game, their defense showed up. So I am going to trust PJ Fleck in year 9 to realize how important this game is in terms of continuing momentum of the program and of the season. And I think he'll have his team motivated. I think the Gophers are just too talented and have too many advantages in this game to struggle. So I predicted a comfortable Gophers win. I think it's going to be 31-10 is what I predicted. And like I said, I'm not confident in that prediction, but I do think it's more likely that the Gophers come out and have a dominant performance than this game being close. But barely. Like I would say it's like a 34% chance of that happening,
Sure.
like a 32% chance of them having a close win, and then like a 33% chance of them losing this game.
Yeah, I definitely think Minnesota wins this game. I mean, the spread opened at 5.5. It's down at 3.5 right now. Over under at 44.5 points. On paper, I agree that this is a game that Minnesota should probably run away with, both literally and figuratively. It should not be close. This is a Michigan State team that has not showed any sense of being capable of beating a quality Power 4 opponent. But Minnesota, we talked about it last week before the Iowa game. Consistency has always kind of been an issue the last few seasons with the Golden Gophers. You just don't know what you're going to get week to week. The Nebraska game going into the Iowa game is a great example of that. It looks like, after that Ohio State game, they maybe find some momentum with that Purdue win, a comeback win, knock off top 25 Nebraska. You're suddenly thinking, hey, maybe this team can win 8 games, 9 games. But then they come out and get, just dominated last week by the Hawkeyes, and you kind of go back to square one of the questions that that surround this team. And you look at it, they've beaten, I think, one quality opponent so far this season two in Nebraska and Rutgers. But that's also 2 more than Michigan State. So, like you said, go back to the proof of concept thing. We've seen the Gophers, when they can execute, are a good team. Are a team that could contend with top 25 teams and win those types of games. We've seen it for years. I think this Michigan State team is on, a quit watch per se under Jonathan Smith. I think there's a good chance Jonathan Smith is out of East Lansing by Sunday afternoon. So I do think Minnesota wins this game, with all that being said. I'm not going to go with them continuing that 30-point trend. I just don't have enough confidence in this offense being consistent enough. I do think it's possible. But give me Minnesota to win this game 27-14. I think the Gophers defense plays mostly well throughout the game, gives up a late touchdown, which makes it seem a little bit closer than the final score would probably indicate. So I do think the Gophers win this game. I'm not sure it's going to be a game that they play well enough that makes us feel like we've got answers to a lot of the questions we talked about today offensively, but I think they'll do enough to win this game. I think it's going to have to probably come down to Drake Lindsey and that passing attack. This offensive line just has not shown me anything that would give me confidence that they are going to, be able to move the ball against a poor run defense in Michigan State, just because they haven't been able to run the ball except once all season. So that, and you add potentially no Darius Taylor to that, it's going to be an uphill battle there no matter what. So I do think the Gophers win. I think they cover. Obviously, I think they win quite handily at 27-14. But I'm not sure it's exactly going to be a effort that people feel great about coming out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It should be an interesting game.
All right. Well, with that, I think that's another episode of the Golden Gopher Hour in the books. Again, my name is Callaghan-Croley, publisher over at GophersNation.com, covered Minnesota Golden Gophers athletics. We have a great deal going on right now where you can join Gophers Nation for $1 your first week and enjoy a complimentary year of the athletic included with your membership. Great deal that you can't find anywhere else. And Tony, where can all our great listeners find you?
Yeah, as always on Twitter at Tony Liebert, and then any of the written content over on Gophers on SI.
Awesome. Uh, I think that was another great episode, Tony. Really good preview of this Michigan State game. We did it a much shorter time than we usually did in the past, so that's always a benefit to both us and our listeners. Until we talk on Sunday following this game, everybody have a great rest of your week. Have a great week and enjoy the Golden Gophers versus the Spartans on Saturday. If you're going to the game, have fun. I haven't checked the weather, so I'm sure it'll be a little chilly. But enjoy the game, have fun, stay warm, and we'll talk to everybody real soon.